And on the big screen. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the CoinRock Show. In today's episode, we have Byron on the show. And welcome, Byron, first of all. We just had kind of like the pre-show conversation. And the cool thing with Byron is he writes about everything. So many different topics we can take this show. There's literally about a dozen topics that we can discuss. And so it's going to be a very interesting one. I think we're going to go over stable coins, Dogecoin, privacy, Bitcoin, the macro. So a lot of different topics. Welcome to the show, Byron. And this is basically your time to introduce yourself, um, what you do, how you got into this world of crypto. Yeah, take it away.
Thanks for having me on, first of all. My name's Byron. I write a newsletter for Blockworks. I've been doing that for about 4 years now. How I got into it, my origin story is incredibly boring. I need to make up a newer one, but I was just poking around on LinkedIn looking for a career change and responded to an ad for a newsletter writer job. I had never been a writer before. I was an equities trader for like 25 years.
Mm.
Knew a little bit about crypto, not a lot. Um, but I think that's my very boring origin story actually is kind of instructive because crypto, at least 4 years ago, it was a kind of place where you could jump in knowing little to nothing and
Yep.
like get up to speed really quickly and be able to contribute, which was really fun. It was very different than traditional finance where you absolutely cannot do that.
Yep.
Even now, I think that's still the case now. Like I think you can become an expert in quotation marks on crypto pretty quickly if you really want to be. I'm actually not really an expert. I'm a generalist. Uh, I have sort of my knowledge of any particular topic is about an inch deep, but hopefully, kind of like a mile wide.
Yep.
And crypto is good for that, I think, because like crypto kind of touches on everything. Touches, I've as an equities trader, like I never sat around and thought about like, is this thing I'm trading a security? Because everything just was. You didn't have to think about stuff like that. But
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
crypto makes you think about stuff like that, which is why I think it's fun and interesting.
I mean, what's interesting about with all the guests we have is the background. So the origin story is one thing, but also the background pre-crypto, right? So I actually didn't know you spend that much time in equities. What was what made you look into crypto? Because I have a lot of friends in TradFi. I lived in London for 10 years. As you know, the city of London is one of the big hubs. It's in and I left London during COVID. And in the previous cycle, this is 5 years ago now, there was still a lot of reluctance for equity specialists, traders, analysts to look into crypto even. It's a bit better now, but I'm curious to hear what made you look into crypto, and for coming from equities.
Um, yeah, I heard about Bitcoin very early, and unfortunately didn't do anything about it. I got a friend of mine like explained it to me, and I didn't really understand it, but I thought, well, that's kind of cool. So I thought, like, I'll just buy some anyway. And I was like, okay, how do you buy some? How do you buy them? And then he told me like, you have to like go into a chat room, and then you like you like send a bank transfer to this guy's bank account, and then he send you. I'm like, well, I'm not doing that. Um, so I was aware of Bitcoin early. Unfortunately, I think it was I don't know, I think Bitcoin was like $50 or something at the time. So
Yeah.
that was unfortunate. Although I for sure would have lost the keys and it wouldn't have made any difference. So really it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. But I was aware of Bitcoin early, and then I looked at it a little bit more in like 2015 or something, and I kind of went down the rabbit hole. And then decided that it wasn't going to be a big thing for various reasons, unfortunately. So I got that completely wrong. Um, but I was aware of it, and then I was kind of looking around for a career change because equities trading is one, sort of a young person's game, and two, not nearly as fun as it used to be. Now it's just, computer versus computer. It used to be person versus person, which was fun.
Yep.
Now it's just computer versus computer, which is not fun. Um, So I was just kind of clicking around looking for something to do, and then Blockworks was looking for somebody that had a traditional finance background that could maybe explain crypto to traditional finance people.
Yep.
And I kind of thought, well, that would be fun. And not knowing very much about it myself, I just started to learn about it. And at the time, the new thing was automated market makers and decentralized exchanges. It was basically DeFi. And
Yep.
I used to be a human market maker, so this idea of automated market makers was really fascinating to me. And then I just thought that like this is, they're reinventing finance, which is just really what I just thought was really cool and
Yep.
that was really interesting and thought it would be something that I would want to spend time on. That was 4 years ago, and I'm not really sure how much of finance we've reinvented. Like it's been slightly, it's been a little bit underwhelming in terms of
Yep.
what the industry has actually created. But it's still super interesting to me.
Yeah, I agree. On the show, I joke about this all the time, right? It's the like the foundational principles of crypto, especially Bitcoin, was about replacing the system. And we're in a cycle now where the where traditional finance, BlackRock and everyone under BlackRock is coming into the space or is at least more interested this cycle. And what's interesting is all the crypto native, especially let's say the rebels, right? The OGs, the old school, anti-TradFi uh, first movers into Bitcoin who hated traditional finance now need TradFi and the big boys to come in to buy to get the price up. So it's a very funny it's a funny cycle and circle that we're in because you actually if you want the price to go up, you need buy pressure, and retail's not going to bring the buy pressure to get the price up as quickly as people want to. So it is exactly I agree with you, a kind of a did, and this is maybe a good question. You mentioned that has crypto and Bitcoin, has it really, what has it brought fundamentally? Has it really delivered on the promise? What's your view on everything, and what are you seeing? Also, the conversations you're having from people from TradFi, maybe your former colleagues, how do they see the space?
Um, yeah, I think I mean, it's changed a lot. Like crypto is not very cypherpunk anymore,
Yeah,
which is, I'm not like a real cypherpunk myself, but I kind of respect that hardcore view of things. Um, now it's much more, you know, trying to be institutionalized. Uh, and I'm kind of a traditional finance guy, so I'm sympathetic to that also. But it makes it a little bit, less fun and interesting maybe. Um, and there hasn't been a lot of success so far. When I started 4 years ago, you know, there was a general opinion, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, that
mm,
protocols were software, right? Which kind
yeah,
of seems obvious. But now there's more of an attitude that protocols are essentially companies, right? Like they're
yeah,
supposed to make money and then they're supposed to return that money to token holders, just like a company makes money and then returns that money to stockholders.
yeah,
And I think that's good. Like as an investor, like that makes it more interesting to me as an investor. Um, but it's different. It's just, it's different than what it was
yeah.
even 4 years ago, and definitely what it was 15 years ago. And there hasn't been like a huge amount of success in that transition so far. Like there's almost all of the revenue in crypto is downstream of meme coin trading, basically, right? Like there's
Yeah.
no, it hasn't, there are no, there, well, with like a couple of exceptions, maybe in the DePIN space, there's very little of what you would call, like something that's traditionally investable.
Yeah.
Unless you are bullish on meme coins, there's not very much investable in crypto right now.
What would make it, what would make the space or projects more investable from your point of view?
Um, I mean, there's two things. One is generating more revenue,
Yep.
but it's like right now it's hard to see where that comes from unless meme coins get really popular again.
Yep.
Um, and then the other thing is returning that revenue to token holders. So there's a debate in crypto about whether projects should be returning revenue to token holders. A lot of people argue, I'd say probably most people argue that they shouldn't because they view these protocols as startup businesses, and
Yep.
you wouldn't expect a startup business to be returning revenue to equity holders. You expect them to be investing for the future. Um, but I take the opposite view, partly because I think protocols are not companies, they're something different. And mostly because token holders have no legal rights to cash flows.
Yep.
They don't, you don't like, as a token holder, you don't own a protocol. Like a protocol is just software, it can't actually be owned. You have no claim on assets. You can't go to a
Yep.
court and say, I get 1% of this company's assets
Yep.
because I own 1% of the tokens. So I think that uh, it makes sense for protocols to start returning revenue to token holders immediately just to prove that they do have a de facto
Mm.
claim on earnings. I like the DePIN model of tokenomics. There are
Yep.
some DePIN projects where like 80, 90, or maybe even 100% of revenue just goes straight back to token holders via buybacks. And they're doing that at the same time that they're issuing
Yep.
tokens effectively to pay for costs, which is a little bit weird. Like it's like you would never see a company issuing stock at the same time that they are buying it back. That would just
Yep.
be nonsensical. But I think it does make sense for tokens because tokens, protocols aren't companies and tokens aren't stocks. And I think
Yep.
that's one way to prove that they have genuine value. Because otherwise you look at them and think like, well, there's no reason for this token really to have value. If you don't have a legal claim on the earnings, like why is this worth anything? So I think it makes sense for tokens to show that they have value by returning revenue right from the beginning.
Yep. Looking at what's happening now in the market, what narratives or what niches uh, get your attention? What are you the most interested in? What do you think is not just bullish, but actually interesting for the space?
Yeah, it's a tough one because, like I said, most of the revenue in the space is downstream of meme coins,
Yep.
and I'm not particularly bullish on meme coins. Like I think they can be fun and they can be lottery tickets, and I occasionally buy a lottery ticket. I also occasionally buy a meme coin.
Yep.
But I don't think that's like a growing business. And if that was a business on the stock market, I think the stock would get a very low multiple. It would probably get like probably trade on 8 times P, or like it would trade like
Yep.
a tobacco company or something, right? Like I don't think that's a growing business, same as I don't think cigarettes are a growing business.
Yep.
Um, I do think DePIN is really interesting because it's a whole new kind of business model that is only enabled by crypto. So
Yep.
you're not just trying to reinvent what already happens on the stock market and crypto. It's like this whole new thing that it can only be done with crypto, which I think makes it interesting. It's just small. There's not, there's not many of them that do significant amounts of revenue, and it's also kind of hard to see like how big it could get because how many people are there really that are willing to invest in DePIN tokens? But there's a couple of them I think are really interesting. Grass, for one, is
Yep.
super interesting. It's got this neat AI angle. That's not investment advice. I don't know enough about it nearly to give investment advice about it, but I think it's like a really cool business model, uh,
Yep.
and it generates revenue unrelated to meme coins, which I think is really good. Another one is GeoNet, which is
Mm.
does a really neat GPS related thing. That's one of those that returns, I think it's like 80% of the revenue goes straight into token buybacks. They're also issuing tokens to generate supply. But I think it's just, an interesting use case, something that would only happen with crypto and something that has like interesting tokenomics for owners.
Yep. Yeah, we actually so one of my partners at CoinRock, Lucas, is a big fan of Grass. So we had a call a couple months ago with the actual founder of Grass, talked about how they came up with just how they think about the product itself, the initial mission of AI and just data aggregation. So one of I'd say, I mean, so Lucas, my partner, extremely bullish on Grass. He was also a very uh, he 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 actually opened Grass to a a segment of the KOL space who, usually those big projects don't get as much visibility as the meme coins, especially for in certain audiences. And so Grass, he was actually one of the first early promoters of Grass and saying, hey, just farm the airdrop. It's free. If you have a computer, just this is how you can actually do something in a project that actually has potentially legs. And this was 18 months ago. So it's interesting to see that Grass. And again, I don't hold Grass, not financial advice, but just seeing that, when you see projects that in crypto are still building after 12 months of having any kind of public uh, communication, or I know the Lucas met with some of the team back at ETH Denver last year, I believe. It's always a good sign when you see people building, and it's definitely something that the vision and the execution is are two things that they're doing very well. And so talking directly to the founder, it was interesting to hear his point of view on how they're thinking about just the vision of building Grass. So that was interesting. Speaking of meme coins, you recently wrote about Dogecoin, and you said something along the lines that Dogecoin success is unrepeatable. There will never be another Dogecoin. Let's get more into that. What's your view on that idea?
Yeah, I had that thought after I kept seeing Subway ads with Danny DeVito in it. I don't know if you know what either Subway is or Danny
Yeah,
DeVito, who Danny
yeah,
DeVito is. Subway is a sandwich chain in the U.S.
yeah,
It's kind of ubiquitous. There's a Subway everywhere. And Danny DeVito is a TV and movie star from the 1970s and 80s. And it's just
yeah,
funny to me that Danny DeVito is the face for Subway because he is old. And
yeah.
like I'm old enough to remember when he was a TV star, but not, I'm kind of old
He was a
too.
big
Like
star
I
in the
question,
90s on
like,
VHS. I remember the kind of like that wave. Like he had about 15 years of being in every other, he was everywhere b before social media. It was a big name in the 90s,
yes, that's exact,
70s,
but that's
90s.
that's exactly the reason. So,
Yeah,
the reason why Danny DeVito is still making loads of money being a pitchman for Subway,
yeah,
is that he belongs to that last cohort of celebrities that were universally acknowledged
yeah,
as celebrities, because when he was on TV. There was only 5 TV stations,
yeah,
so everybody watched the same TV shows. And he was in movies when people went to the movie theaters to see a movie. So everyone went to see the same
yeah,
movies. So at that time, uh, everybody agreed who was famous. And
yeah,
now in the internet era, like someone can be famous to you and not famous to me, right? Like the
yeah,
media has splintered into thousands of micro markets. Like, my newsletter gets 20,000 readers a day and your
yeah,
podcast gets however many. Um, so, celebrity now is a lot different than celebrity then. So it makes sense for Subway or whomever to reach back into that era of
yeah,
universal celebrity to find somebody that everybody can recognize, right? Um, And I think that is applicable to meme coins also. Like
Yeah,
Dogecoin was created in a time when there was only like a few dozen cryptocurrencies, right?
yeah,
So everybody knows what Dogecoin is, even people
yeah,
that
yeah,
have no interest in crypto, right? And now there are 30,000 new meme coins every day, right?
yeah, yeah,
So crypto is basically an attention economy. And at the time, Dogecoin was created when our attention was, split among a few dozen
yeah,
cryptocurrencies. And now any new crypto that comes along, it's coming into an era where our attention is split among tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of them. Um, I can't even tell you like I don't think I've heard of a new meme coin in weeks, which is
yeah,
weird for me because I like look at crypto every day.
yeah,
If you look at the statistics, like Pump.Fun is doing like I don't like $1 million a day of revenue or something like it.
yeah.
I'm making that number up. I can't remember exactly what it is, but they're doing a lot. So
They,
there are
I think
still
at peak they were doing 20 to 30 million a day.
yeah, and I think
Yeah,
it's
crazy.
bottomed out at like $1 million a day or
Yeah,
something like that, which is a lot. Like
yeah,
so people are still creating and trading meme coins, but I don't hear about any of them,
yeah,
right? So in that sense, I think that like Dogecoin is kind of the Danny DeVito of cryptos, and we're just not, it's going to be difficult to get any more of those. And that's maybe like, they're meme coins, so who cares? But I think that maybe applies to something like Solana as well.
yeah,
Um, uh, like I just question whether there is as much upside to any individual crypto as people think. Like crypto, people rightly look at cryptos as lottery tickets.
yeah,
Uh, and they think about like they want to get the next Solana, which Solana was a 1000x at some point or something like that.
yeah.
And I think that there's just going to be a lot fewer of those, if any, going forward.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about the Danny DeVito idea that you shared is so I grew up in Switzerland and in Europe. So you had in the 90s, of course, f fewer radio shows, TV shows, movies, right? In the US. And so in Europe, we would only get a portion, a small percentage of what you guys got in the US. So I can tell you the biggest, the only celebrities that would make it to any kind of um, gossip magazines would be Tom Cruise, Bruce Willis, Julia Roberts, Richard Gere, Harrison Ford, Danny DeVito, maybe two, three more, and that's it. So we grew,
Yeah.
my generation from the like the mid 80s, so born 86, growing up bet like in the up to like the 2000s before the internet. That's all you would the local magazine would cover one or two celebrities. I remember, for example, when you remember when Planet Hollywood launched the restaurant and they had the celebrities attached to it? For
Mm.
us in Europe, it was one of the first, that was huge news because you had these huge Hollywood actors, Bruce Willis, for example, being attached to a restaurant. And that was one of the 10 big names we knew. So I agree with you. It is a lost era. And now there's, you can be famous in your space and walk out down the street and no one knows you. And you see that all the time on social media.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, we like Mr. Beast could walk straight by past me and I'd have no idea. But
Yeah, yeah.
my,
Same
my
thing with
kids my
the
kids would know presumably.
and you ask like a 20-year-old and they know all these streamers, right? Streamers have been popping up over the last few
Um,
years. And these guys have millions of followers watching them every single hour sometimes just like, clicking on stories. And you and I probably would never recognize them, right? But they can get 10,000 people following them. I saw videos of Speed, who was in China 2 weeks ago or last week, and you see thousands of people just following him down the street. And I mean, he's a streamer like many others, but for if I hadn't seen them on social media as much as they are now, there's no way you could recognize them, right? And really value the attention they command. Speaking of meme coins, you also wrote something interesting, and I completely agree with this, but I want to have your take on this. You said Bitcoin is a meme coin. What do you mean by that?
Um, Mostly, I mean that it's just an idea, right? Like it doesn't
Yeah,
have any intrinsic value, other than, what value people arbitrarily decide that it has, right?
yeah,
Um, and it's a little bit, I kind of say that just to annoy people sometimes because it's fun to
yeah,
annoy people. But I also genuinely mean it. Uh, I I would say also that I think gold is a meme, right? So
yeah,
memes can be substantial. So I don't mean to say that Bitcoin doesn't have value. I think it does, but I think that the value is derived simply from this idea that it has value, which is
yeah,
circular and self-referential and kind of confusing. Um, but ideas can have genuine value, and I think Bitcoin has reached escape velocity so that its meme value is genuine and lasting, and I don't think it's going anywhere. But I think that it does, I think its value does simply derive from an idea, and the price of Bitcoin will go up to the degree that that idea spreads to more people, which
yeah,
is exactly what a meme is, as defined by was it Richard Dawkins
yeah.
who coined the phrase meme? So it's like, it literally fits the exact definition of a meme as, Richard Dawkins defined it. So therefore it is a meme coin. And also, what else is it? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Like, if it's not a meme coin, then what is it?
Yeah. You know what's interesting is all these ideas, these big ideas. So I come from the world of marketing. We talk about the word big idea all the time, right? Slogans, big ideas, like how do you get someone's attention in a few words? And I remember like the first time I heard about Bitcoin and Litecoin, 2013. I like everyone's on who is on the show, I usually ask them about, the first time they heard about Bitcoin. For me, it was 2008, completely faded. I was in LA very early on with just being at meetup groups, what now is meetup groups, but before on the weekends, small groups in Marina del Rey, very technical founders and entrepreneurs, real entrepreneurs from like the tech in the 80s and 90s who would come speak, and then, it would be basically a breakfast and brunch, and that's the first time that someone talked about Bitcoin. I did not understand it. I was too young to really grasp, also understand anything about the financial system and the impact it has. And then the second time was 2013, and that's when the meme really came up with one of our developers actually came up to me and said, "Hey, I have an idea. Let's allocate a portion of the treasury and the budget to buying Bitcoin
Hmm.
and mining
That
Bitcoin." And
was that
he
was that was ahead of the curve.
That was 2013. And we always joke about it because I said no, and then he didn't do it himself, and Bitcoin was around 200 bucks. And so the way he pitched it to me was Bitcoin is digital gold, and he said Litecoin at the time is digital silver.
Yeah.
And so that was the birth of those ideas. What's interesting is we talked about this on one of the shows recently that ETH has a huge identity. So I always say that, I'm an ETH bull, but it has so many issues. One of which is it has no identity today. It's tried to be so many different things, whereas Bitcoin has largely been the meme, digital gold. It's digital gold, and it's money. It's it's the only way to escape the never-ending printing. And so it stuck to this original idea was ETH every 24 months is a new kind of slogan coming up. And I think that's also hindered its among many other things, but it's really hurt the brand itself. And I really think that all these projects and companies are ultimately brands, and Bitcoin has had its like a I agree with you, a very strong idea and big idea from day one. And for example, ETH just keeps jumping from one idea to the next. So
Yeah, but
yeah,
digital gold is just a much better elevator pitch than world computer
yeah,
or ultrasound money
ultrasound money. Yeah,
or what was the recent one? Oh, the most recent one I think is It's like the Apple the App
The
Store,
App
the Apple
Store.
yeah the Apple App Store
Yeah,
for crypto, which
yeah,
it's not really.
yeah,
So yeah, Ethereum has just never had a really good elevator pitch,
yeah,
and Bitcoin has had one of the digital gold is one of the best elevator pitches of all time.
yeah, yeah. And you hear it, you don't forget it. That's the thing, and it's been consistent. So yeah, I always and when you talk to Bitcoin maxis, they some of them completely disagree with the idea. They're such purists that it's like you almost offend them by talking about the idea that Bitcoin is a meme, but I fully agree with that. Um,
Yeah.
Talking about traditional finance, and I think this is actually a really, really good point because I want to talk about ETFs and have your point because you've been a lot. I think you're 100% right about being in crypto. You can be a so-called expert much quicker than in other industries. And I think there's a lot of, this running joke on Twitter that every day, whenever a world event happens, everyone is an expert in the new thing. And recently, people were experts in ETFs. People who've never been in equities all have an opinion about ETFs or ETFs bullish or bearish. And I want to hear from you because you have a pretty strong stance on ETFs and crypto. So, what do you think of ETFs in the market? And now we see so many ETFs for coins that even for memes now talk about ETFs for memes. So, what's your view on the ETFs in crypto?
Yeah, my view is that ETFs for crypto are a bad idea. Possibly all ETFs, like maybe even the Bitcoin ETF, I'm not sure,
Mm,
but leaving that one aside, the ones that are in the pipeline now,
yeah,
like there is a Dogecoin ETF in the pipeline. I don't think
yeah.
that's been approved yet. I've kind of lost
It's
track of
been
it
floated a
slightly.
few weeks ago. I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to me, like the idea of a Dogecoin ETF is just absurd. There's absolutely
Mm,
no reason why Dogecoin needs to be tradable on stock exchanges. Like there's a silver ETF and a gold ETF and whatever ETF because those things like have some use in the real economy and
yeah,
maybe if maybe you need to buy a silver ETF to hedge the costs that you have in your business because silver is an input or something. I don't know.
yeah,
I'm just making this up as I go along. Um, but there's absolutely no reason for there to be a Dogecoin ETF because nobody has any natural exposure to Dogecoin that they need to expose and need to hedge.
yeah,
And you might just think that like, well, if you think that stock markets are for gambling, then sure, put Dogecoin on the stock market, and then you might as well put like Vegas odds for NFL football games on the stock market
yeah,
too. Like, why not use your 401k to bet on NFL football? Might as well. Um, but I don't think that's what the stock market is for. Like the purpose of the stock market is to channel savings to their most productive uses. Um, and Dogecoin is not that. Like
yeah,
I absolutely believe that people should be able to buy Dogecoin if they want to, but I also think that they should go through the minor friction of having to open a Coinbase account
yeah.
or better yet, open a digital wallet and do it on a decentralized exchange. I just think that the idea of making meme coins available to stock market investors is just basically financial nihilism, which I think is really damaging to
Yeah.
not only people but also to the economy.
Why do they do it then? Which is a real question. What's the incentive? Because a lot of people see these ETFs and of course they think it's bullish. What happens behind the scenes and why are we seeing so many ETFs?
Well, I mean, ETF issuers list them because they can make money doing
Yeah,
it. That's obvious enough. And the previous SEC, which everyone hated, I don't think ever would have considered a Dogecoin ETF. But the current SEC, which is super pro crypto, I think is taking this stance that anything crypto related is good.
Yep.
Um, and I'm like, that's, as a crypto newsletter writer, like, I'm glad to see that. It's nice that the powers that be are friendlier to crypto. That's good for
Yep.
my newsletter business. Um, but I don't think I don't think it's either necessary or good to have these things available to stock market investors.
Yep. Yep. I agree. You also wrote recently about two things that are connected. One is privacy and Tornado Cash. And I think this is actually pretty timely because a few weeks ago, the founder, one of the lead developer of Tornado Cash was released, and so is free. What Share with us what you think about Tornado Cash and its connection. We can talk about privacy too. What's your view on that side of the industry?
Yeah, maybe just to start with the idea of financial privacy. Crypto people, I think, tend to think that financial privacy is a human right, but it never has been, at least not legally. Like, maybe you can think that it should be, but that's just an opinion,
Yep.
right? There's no legal precedent for financial privacy. It's not in the U.S. Constitution. There's
Yep.
no, there have been no legal cases that
It's very popular in the crypto world, right? People like
yeah.
really pushing the idea that it is a God-given right, and I fully agree with you.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Financial privacy is just an accident of history. It's just because there was no way to track physical cash.
yep,
And for most of history, physical cash was the only kind of money, right? So
yep,
therefore, financial privacy was just a thing that happened by default. And I think that's good. Like, I actually
yep,
go out of my way to pay for things with cash. Like, when I'm buying a coffee or something, I will be very annoying and give the person cash and make them give me change,
yep,
because I think that if people don't pay with cash, then people, businesses will stop using it or
yeah, yeah,
accepting it, and then cash will go away. And I think that's bad because
yep,
cash is the only way to preserve financial privacy. Um, and I think financial privacy is good as long as it's limited by the laws of physics, right? Like,
yep,
uh, um, there's a reason why there's no $1,000 bill anymore. There used to even be a $10,000 bill that was legal currency. I'm not, it was issued in like 1878, so I'm not sure very many people used it. But in theory, you could still have one of these $10,000 bills, and you could still go to a bank and hand it in, and
yep.
they would cash it for $10,000.
So I
Um,
just wanted to talk about the I just Googled here because I know this passed. So in Switzerland, they actually passed a law, and I'll read it to you. Everyone must accept Swiss banknotes. This is on the government website, right? So law passed a year ago. Uh, must accept Swiss banknotes in payment without restriction. Swiss francs side deposits at the Swiss National Bank must be accepted. So it is now in the Constitution that no business can refuse cash. Whereas I
yeah,
agree with
I,
you, we're trending
I,
to a cashless society. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the reason that governments do that is because, like, what happens if North Korea hacks the Swiss banking system, right? And
Yep.
then
Yep.
if people don't have cash and companies don't have the capacity to accept cash, then the economy comes to a complete stop.
Yep.
So now, like, if cash is still in circulation, then if somebody crashes the banking system for a few days, then everyone, maybe people can get by on cash. So I think that, that
Yep.
makes sense from that perspective. I don't think that the Swiss government cares, is I don't know anything about Switzerland, but I'm guessing that they don't care very much about financial privacy. That's probably not, well, maybe Switzerland does now that I say that out
They
loud.
do, thankfully,
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
than other countries. But the cash thing was the Swiss like their privacy, even just like as a culture, as a country. we grew up in, well, the Banking Secrecy Acts and everything. So, up to 2008, it
Yeah,
really was a thing. But I
yeah,
was
maybe
surprised to
Switzerland
see
might
it.
be an exception.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
surprised to see that cash really is. It, and look, there's businesses that don't accept cash. You go to Starbucks in the US, like, a few months ago, they look at you in a very weird way when you give them
Yeah.
cash. And I like paying cash. So,
Yeah.
no, please continue about like privacy.
Yeah, so on the one hand, I pay with cash because I think cash
Yeah.
is important. But on the other hand, I think that it totally makes sense that there is no longer a $10,000 bill in circulation because, the only people that are going to use that are criminals, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the problem with crypto is that crypto makes cash-like privacy scalable
Yeah.
beyond $10,000. It makes it scalable to millions and billions or however much you can think of, right? That's the problem, I think, because that enables North Korean hacking and
Yeah.
it enables these pig butchering schemes that you hear about in Myanmar that
Yeah.
are absolutely just devastating to read about, people's lives being ruined.
Yeah.
Um, and that kind of thing is why the Bank Secrecy Act was passed in the US in the 1970s, because banking was becoming electronic and people figured out
Hmm.
that electronic banking was facilitating money laundering and crime on a scale that previously you couldn't when you had
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
stuff cash into duffel bags and then fly them to a
Carry them.
country or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe the Bank Secrecy Act probably needs updating because it was passed in 1970 when, and in the well before the internet, and now like everything, our entire lives are trackable by credit cards and things like that. So, maybe we need more financial privacy than we have. But
Yeah.
my point is simply that financial privacy is just like an accident of history, on for one thing, and for two thing the idea of unlimited financial privacy,
Hmm.
to me, it just like makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. And about Tornado Cash, um, what do you th first of all, why do you believe they released charges, they released the developer, and what do you think that signals to companies, and also hackers, of course?
Uh, yeah, I don't know the case well enough to opine on, why he was released, or if he should have been. I'm not a
Yep.
lawyer, although I'm also not an economist or an expert in any of the other things I talk about. So I probably should be able to just talk about that in the same way I talk about anything. But as for signaling, the
Mm,
signaling I think is really interesting because if you take the stance that um, Tornado Cash is okay, if you take that literally,
yep.
then every bank in the US or around the world could, copy paste some software
Yep.
that is a peer-to-peer Tornado Cash like system for moving money, and they would never have to do KYC or
Yep.
AML checks again. Um, and is that what we want? I don't know. You can make a case that KYC and AML is counterproductive or not worth doing or an invasion of privacy. You can do that. But that is the signal and the implication of being pro Tornado Cash is
Yep.
effectively that KYC and AML shouldn't exist. And I don't think very many people agree with that statement. I think most people think that KYC is a good thing. And if you think KYC should exist, then you probably shouldn't think that Tornado Cash should.
Yep.
Does that
Yeah,
make
it's
sense?
definitely interesting. No, I agree. I think the issue that we're seeing now with the banking, not all banks, but certain banks have become so intrusive. It's not just about being intrusive, it's also about, let's look at Coinbase, even Coinbase in the space, one of the, of course, OGs in crypto. I mean, you can see hundreds and hundreds of testimonials, even on Twitter, of people getting locked out of their accounts after submitting KYC, bank statements, utility bills. So I think there's a happy medium in between the extreme KYC that certain banks literally shut down crypto accounts, or withhold funds, and then the extreme tornado cash, let's, look the other way and everyone can do whatever they want and funnel money from, you know, anywhere in the world to, any type of money from any business. Of course, that opens up big issues too. Um, I think it's just a work in progress. It's just we'll have to see how the next few years, evolve. Which brings me to the stablecoin topic. I know you've written about stablecoins too. Last week we had the co-founder of Tether on the show. We talked a lot about stablecoins too. What's your view on the new administration? Because it's changing, of course. The under the Trump administration and the SEC too. What's your view on the current state of stablecoins, where we're going, and your opinion?
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about stablecoins. I think they're really cool. I think they're really neat. Like, the first time that you open a digital wallet and send some stable coins from one wallet to another or to use it to buy something, that's
Yep.
just a very eye-opening experience. And like, okay, wow, this is just a different way to do money.
Yep.
Um, and I think that, the original promise of crypto, even going straight back to Satoshi's white paper, is that crypto is internet native money,
Yep.
and stable coins so far are the best implementation of that. Maybe it's not the final one because it's not genuinely internet native. There's still dollars in a bank account somewhere. But so far, it's fulfilled the promise of Satoshi's white paper better than anything else, including Bitcoin, in
Yep.
terms of being internet money. But back to the KYC thing, like stable coins are U.S. dollars that are not KYC'd. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. Like,
Yep.
people like to say that um, crypto is bad for crime because blockchains are transparent and you can trace all of them. You can follow the trail of wherever it's moving. But but crypto is very popular with criminals, and
Yep.
it seems like it's increasingly so. I read recently that uh, it's criminal activity is often, or the criminal proceeds that are uncrypto related are oftentimes swapped into crypto because it's
Mm.
easier to launder the money there and then
Yep.
off ramp. So it's actually, people say that crypto is bad for crime because once you get to the off ramp, it's going to be KYC'd and they're going to see where it
Yep.
came from and you're going to get caught. But that's not, revealed preferences suggest something else. A revealed
Yep.
preference is that criminals think it's so easy, it's easier to launder crypto than it is regular money. So they're switching their regular money into crypto, laundering it, and then off-ramping it because off-ramping it is so easy.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, so I've got mixed feelings about stable coins being free of KYC. I think there is a good case to be made that they could be so useful and so economically productive that it's worth tolerating the crime that it enables. And
Yep.
that's not unique to crypto. Like, the optimal amount of fraud in the financial system is north of zero.
Yep.
If your goal was to have no fraud within banking, then the only way to do that would be to have no banking, right? So,
Yep.
you tolerate some level of money laundering because you know that having a banking system is economically important. And I think that stablecoins could become economically important enough that the fraud and crime that they enable are worth it.
Yep.
But I wouldn't say that's the case right now. I think that's still speculative. Um, but yeah, I think that's a discussion that people need to have.
Yep. Yep. I definitely think there's going to be a lot of changes in the next 12 to 24 months when it comes to legislation for stable coins. The US, the new SEC really has signaled that it's part of it's a big theme for the upcoming framework that they want to release in August this year. So that will definitely dictate USDC, USDT, and a lot of other stable coins or projects who are looking to launch stable coins or who have launched and either need to uh, bring more transparency to the way they're doing it or just stop. There's going to be a lot of I I would not want to be a US dollar stable coin, a startup in that space going up now because there's so much uncertainty in the coming months. The big players I think will be fine, but being a startup stablecoin USD, there's gonna be a lot of things and changes in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't think it's a great business, and it's going to get, as soon as it's legal, basically, as soon as it's out of this
yeah,
legal gray zone, there's just going to be an incredible amount of competition.
yeah, 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 yeah. I agree. We have about 5 minutes left. I'm curious to hear what your view is on this cycle. Everyone's talking about, of course, that we're in a dip for the last few months, this choppy range. What's your view on the this cycle? Where do we go? How high does Bitcoin go? What happens to the bull market that was promised under Trump? What's your view on this is the question that everyone wants to know about. What's your view on this cycle?
I mean, I think the cycle's over. Um, uh, and it just ended much quicker than I would have guessed. Uh, I don't know, it's hard to substantiate that. Like, what, there's no real definition of when a bull market starts or when it ends or when a bear market starts or when it ends. My like unofficial definition is in the stock market, I think it's when there's a lot of IPOs. Like it's a bull market when there's a lot of IPOs,
Yeah,
and there's a bear market when there are no IPOs. And I think the crypto equivalent is it's a bull market when there's lots of new coins launching and
yeah,
getting, generating a lot of excitement and getting big valuations. And it's a bear market when there's not. And I would say at the moment that there's not. Um, historically it's good to invest in bear markets.
yeah,
There's a quote from Seth Klarman, man, I forget which hedge fund guy it is, but there's a quote that you make your money in bear markets, you just don't know it at the time, right?
yeah.
So this might be the time to be investing in crypto, but I don't like when I look at the cryptos that are available to buy, I struggle to get excited about them. Like they
Mm,
don't seem super investable to me. So I don't really know where it's going to go. There's more of an emphasis on fundamentals now, which I think is good.
yeah,
Um, but I don't think there are very many tokens that are interesting fundamentally. So my optimistic case is that we will earn our way into the next bull
yeah,
market. So, traditionally it's crypto has gone up just because it's crypto. Like people get excited about crypto in quotation marks, and then everything crypto related goes up.
yeah.
I'm hopeful that the next up cycle will be based on something more substantial than that. Um, but I think that's, needs to be proven at the moment.
What do you think needs to happen from a broader macro perspective and point of view to bring the next leg up, bring the next bull, and more excitement in the market?
Well, we just have to get past this immediate insanity about tariffs.
Yeah,
Um, I don't think that crypto can do well if stock markets aren't doing well, although the
yeah,
stock market is not down nearly as much as I would have expected, given the news. But yeah, I think, you need some clarity on the US economy. Like there's, just absolutely no way to predict the US economy right now
yeah.
because tariff news changes every other day. Um, so I think we need some clarity on what the U.S. economy is going to do, maybe what interest rates are going to do. But that's macro stuff, and that's a little bit less interesting to me. Like I'll be more
Yep.
interested when there are, new tokens created that have interesting tokenomics and that people are getting excited about again because
Yep.
they, look interesting from the bottom up rather than just saying like, oh, interest rates are going down, buy Bitcoin. Like that's
Yep.
not that exciting to me.
Yep. Okay. Is there anything before we wrap this up that you'd like to add? Any conclusion? And of course, anywhere people can find you, we'll put all the links around the video. This will be on YouTube. This will be on Twitter too. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, maybe just to end it on an up note, or a positive note. I still think crypto is super interesting and fun, and crypto is still trying to reinvent finances, which forces you to think about finance from first principles, which I think is really interesting and worth doing. So that's my bull case for crypto. It's still
Yep.
interesting.
Yep. What can people do if you had to recommend any resources? Of course, you have your newsletter, but anything that you would recommend for someone. I agree, the market's choppy. There's a lot of sadness on the timeline. What can people do? Is there any book, any documentary that people can look into to kind of take the time off to kind of learn more about crypto and what's happening? What helped you understand the space, and would you recommend to people who take an interest in the space?
That's a hard one. Yeah. It's still kind of new for books, right? Like it's
Yep.
all podcasts and blog posts and
Yep.
newsletters, which is good because that's what Blockworks does. So I recommend listening to all of Blockworks podcasts and
Yep.
reading all of our newsletters. But maybe as a starting point, my favorite book is called Resistance Money. And it's about Bitcoin, but it's the non-number go up bull case for Bitcoin. Like it does not discuss price at all. It's
Yep.
not the digital gold store of value case for Bitcoin. It's like why it's basically why the world is better with Bitcoin in it than without it. I think that would probably be a good starting point for people.
Sounds good. We'll link it. So it's
Resistance money.
Resistance Money by Andrew Bailey. So we'll link that
Yep.
in the description. This was great. Thank you for all these thoughts. You know, we love having very different opinions. What's interesting is we talked about Bitcoin. We talked a lot actually about memes and how I agree this idea that Bitcoin ultimately is a meme and we need it to be a meme for the non-crypto natives to kind of be interested and look into it and then buy um, privacy, stable coins, and yeah, this pullback that is completely dependent on what's happening outside of the space. And now you know more about Byron. We'll link all the resources here in the description. Thank you for joining us on the show, and definitely want to have you back probably in about 3 to 6 months once we see kind of where this market is going. Because that's also how I think the audience what the audience likes is hearing several times from the same voices after a few months. It just gives them a different perspective, and it's also good to catch up on the ideas that we have today that might change in later this year. So, thank you for
All
being on the
right.
show. I'm
All right.
sorry. Thank you guys, and we will see you on the next show. Hey, thanks for watching. If you got value from this episode, you're going to love what's coming next. So subscribe now. We drop new episodes and videos several times a week featuring power players, market movers, and insiders from the financial world. And if you want access to deals and insights we only share privately, hit the links in the description and we'll see you on the next show.